Welcome to the School of Wisdom, a weekly podcast produced for the Bible Bistro, studying the book of Proverbs chapter by chapter. My son, hear the instruction of your father. Forsake not the law of your mother, for they shall be an ornament of grace to your head, and chains about your neck. Now, this week's lesson. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to the School of Wisdom podcast, here in the Bible Bistro. Today we're looking at chapter 16. If you have time, I hope you'll go over to mydailydose.com and get a copy of the outline. You can just scroll down to the blog page, click on the blog page link. You'll find there a listing of all the different articles in the blog. The ones you want to look for are the ones that say outline for Proverbs chapter and then whatever chapter you're looking to study. Those are available to you whether or not you listen to the podcast. You can use those for your own study. Some of them are pretty good. Some of them are not so good. It's just the way things are, you know. This one today is a dandy, I think, because I've taken to calling chapter 16 the Lord's chapter here in the book of Proverbs. Because the Lord's name shows up so much. As a matter of fact, in the first 7 verses, we have the Lord's name 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, we have the Lord's name 7 times here in the first 7 verses. So every verse contains the mention of the Lord, which is in contrast to, say, for example, the next chapter, 17, where you have the Lord mentioned twice in the whole chapter. So here, in this chapter, we really have the predominance of the Lord, His presence, His name. So the proverbist is trying to connect, again, the wisdom and the fear of the Lord to what He's teaching. So everything comes back to our relationship with the Lord. Let me just read for you the first 7 verses. The preparation of the heart in man and the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. All the ways of a man are clean in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the spirits. Commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established. The Lord hath made all things for himself, yea, even the wicked for the day of evil. Every one that is proud in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Though hand joined in hand, he shall not be unpunished. By mercy and truth iniquity is purged, and by the fear of the Lord men depart from evil. When a man's ways please the Lord, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him. So you see that the Lord's predominance here. Everything is dependent upon Him. Our decisions, our thoughts, our ways, our works, all those things that He lists here, those are important. And then verse 5, we have another abomination statement. So everyone that is proud in heart, of course we already know that, because we know there are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 are an abomination to Him, and that first one is pride, he that hath an haughty look. So mercy and truth are mentioned here, and the fear of the Lord is mentioned again there in verse 6, and a man's ways. So we have his ways at the beginning, we have his ways at the end of this section. So the Lord is the centerpiece of all that's being taught. The second section I have is beginning in verse 8, the righteousness of the king, because we have the king showing up quite a bit here. He shows up in verse 10, verse 12, verse 13, 14, and 15. We begin in 8 with a better than statement, or better is. Better is a little with righteousness than great revenue without right. These better than and better is statements just are sprinkled all throughout the book of Proverbs. They're important things. I think I'm going to do speaking of the blog, I think I'm going to do a post here real soon that captures not only all these abomination statements so far, but also all of these better than statements. You can see then how the king becomes the primary focus here. So we've already seen this in previous chapters. I think we saw it last time in chapter 15. The whole idea of the political wisdom really is in the hands of the Lord as well. And here we have it again, talking about the kings and the court and all that comes with wisdom that a king needs to rightly rule. Wisdom and humility begin the third section, which is there in verse 16, starts in 16, and goes, all the way down to verse 20. So 16 and 20 talk about wisdom and humility. We have another better than statement. How much better is it to get wisdom than gold, and to get understanding rather than choice silver, or than chosen and silver. So another better than statement begins this section. Humility is the thing that is going to be the chief idea here. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Better it is to be in a humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoil with the proud. So wisdom and pride come together here to tell us what it means to be wise. Then we have verses 21 through 30, and I just entitled this section, Words, 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 because yet again, we're talking about the mouth. Isn't it interesting how much he speaks about the mouth in the book of Proverbs? I mean, it is just overwhelming how many individual proverbs we have that deal with the mouth. And here in verses 21 through 30, we talk about the mouth a lot. We have the lips, the mouth, the words, the lips, the whisperer, the lips. I don't think does the tongue show up here? But that's verses 21 through 30. And just look at the first one there. The wise in heart shall be called prudent, and the sweetness of lips increases learning. So we have sweetness of lips. We have pleasant words there in verse 24. Verse 29, we don't have lips, but we have a whisperer. He separates chief friends. We notice there in verse 29, the violent man, he must use words because he entices his neighbor. And then lips bring evil to pass there in verse 30. Also, we have verses 31 through 33. And this I just entitled, You Should Have Learned This by Now. The hoary head is a crown of glory, if it be found in the way of righteousness. He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city. The lot is cast into the lap, but the whole disposing thereof is of the Lord. Again, the Lord shows up at the very end of this chapter. And you'll notice his sovereignty is again seen here. Sovereignty was part of the subject of that first section, the first 7 verses. We have it again here, the subject of this last section. And you should have learned this by now because, we begin with the hoary head. Well, if you're old, you should know this. You should have already gotten this by now. He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty. He that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city. So this is all important. You get this and you get wisdom. And remember that it all is seated in the Lord. Okay, I hope you'll join me next time for the School of Wisdom podcast. Hey, thanks for listening to the School of Wisdom podcast. If you're listening to this over YouTube, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so that you'll be notified every time one of these podcasts is uploaded. I really appreciate all my followers, and I try to respond to each and every one of your questions. Come again next week, and we'll enjoy another lesson in the School of Wisdom.